I've got one massive regret as a 23-year-old, and this is something that a lot of people do not even think about because of their emotions. A lot of people just act out of emotion and they just carry on. But I knew at the time when I was acting like this that it wasn't right and that I was staying in stuff that wasn't right. So, my biggest regret would be staying in relationships or still pursuing a relationship when I know there was red flags there. That's my biggest regret if I really think back to it. That's the first thought that came to my mind when I asked myself that question. Now, why is this? This is because you know beforehand that the likelihood of it not being right is high. You know beforehand that the girl isn't going to necessarily be your wife. She isn't necessarily going to be your girl longish term because of certain things. And me being naive in the past, I let things like this go. I genuinely just let things like this go because I think it was because of insecurity, if I'm being real with you. I think it is because of deep insecurity. Because when I look back, I've had a lot of good things happen and bad things happen. Good things happen, bad things happen, good things happen. Like, I've had basically a lot of highs and a lot of lows. And then a lot of times I fall back into the lows. And it's quite hard realistically. So when we apply this to a relationship sense, if I find a girl that I liked, I want to cling on no matter what is necessarily wrong. And it could be due to not feeling much love or whatever when I was growing up. Now, did I? I don't necessarily know if I've ever felt love, to be honest with you. I felt love in bits, but the actual love that I feel like is love, I've only felt for small periods of time. And what this leads you to is clinging on to relationships that is not right, is not correct, that can deeply lead to long term pain. And this is what I found. I stayed in something that I knew deep down that it wasn't right at all. That I knew deep down. And I feel like it only jeopardized me. Don't get me wrong, like now I've made loads of progress, now things are going better, etc. Like, and I've had loads of women and loads of girls since then. But I'm still like, why did you stay in that? Why did you not just kind of maybe withdraw a little bit and even speak up about the stuff that made you uncomfortable? And I didn't even speak up about the shit that made me uncomfortable, which led to resentment on both ends. And that's the issue. If they don't know it's an issue and you just let it go, because me, I'm one of them where I'm like, if a person acts the way they act, I just fucking let them do it. I don't give a fuck. I don't want to argue over little bullshit stuff that should be respectable anyway. But that's the person I am. I'm just like, okay, it is what it is. I'm gonna carry on. I'm gonna deal with it myself. No matter how I feel about that certain thing, I'm gonna deal about it myself. But that person doesn't know that they're doing wrong, and they don't know that it makes you uncomfortable, which can lead to issues in the future. And you bring it up in the future, oh, it was never a problem anyway. And this is the thing, man. You gotta be smart with how you navigate relationships, more so, in my opinion, because that's something that can derail you a lot. I was in a position where I would just cling on to something, and even if it wasn't right, I would just cling on to it. And what would happen would be pain. A lot of times of feeling uncomfortable, even when it was going right, there was times where I was uncomfortable and I felt sick to my stomach because of certain little things. And it's like, why are you in that then? And then I did end up leaving it, but I took way too long. I took way too long. I didn't have enough self respect. And that's basically my biggest regret, boys. Genuinely. You see certain red flags and you stay in it for whatever reason. It's the same with friendships, it's the same in certain environments, even working environments. If you see red flags with stuff that makes you feel deeply a bit like, oh shit, I do not like that. And that I do not stand for any of that, and I fucking despise that. You gotta be smart, man. It's your life. It's your life, bro, and it's quite hard and challenging. this is what I found. I just wanted to cling on to stuff that was not right. I think just due to a lot of random things that's happened. I haven't had a bad upbringing or anything, you know, like I haven't been that bad. Um, but what I will say is certain stuff, certain things can build up over time, certain feelings, certain little things you go through, certain ways you're treated, etc. And I think I do know where it stems from. I do know who it all stems from. It stems from someone older in my life that's been in my life for a while. And when I tell you he was like emotionally abusive a lot of time, and then he couldn't be physically abusive after I got to like 14, because at 14 I was like probably like 5'11", near 6 foot. So, and I was quite big, so he couldn't be physically abusive, but he was emotionally abusive like pretty much my whole life, until I've kind of disconnected the connection now, because that was the only solution, because I couldn't make that person happy at all, and they had to be in my life a large percentage of the time due to certain connections. And I feel like that's where it deeply stems from, you know. But what that doesn't do is that isn't congruent to good relationships at all. Because you let things slip, like you should not be letting things slip. You let stuff happen that you should not be letting happen. You let girls in your life that, let's say for example, there's stuff there that you're like, shit, that makes me uncomfortable. But because you may like that person, whatever, you know, how the emotions go, you stay in that and you build through that and you try to help that and you try to do whatever, and it just leaves you in a position where you're like, fuck, like, why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I let myself get disrespected in that way? Why didn't I act in a certain way? And it could probably all go back to trauma to a degree, you know, like certain things that are just ingrained in you. I'm not talking about like crazy trauma, because there's been people that's been through so much horrible stuff, but there's there's stuff that you probably don't unpack, you know? You don't unpack in your brain. You don't really look into your brain and say, okay, that happened, you know? And it just leaves you in a position where you're like, what? Like, why have I stayed in this? Now it's led to more issues. Now it's led to more things. Now it's led to more arguments. Now it's led to more pain. Now it's led to me getting disrespected in a way that I should never get disrespected.